Welcome, Planning Commission members, staff, and guests to the March Planning Commission session. Multiple staff members are here today to ensure that the meeting runs smoothly and that all applicants and members of the public are able to participate in the meeting at the appropriate times.
If you're here today and would like to speak about a case, please provide your name clearly into the microphone, and please be sure to sign in either at the back of the room or at the podium for documentation purposes. If you are here today to speak about a case, you must speak up when the chairperson calls for public comment. And I'll go ahead and call the roll. Mr. Causey. Here. Mr. Cohn.
Here.
Mr. Cook.
Here.
Ms. Davis.
Here.
Mr. Harp.
Here.
Mr. Osorio.
Here.
Mr. Holcomb.
Here.
And Ms. Cubney.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, I'll give a brief overview of the meeting format. Applicants with requests before the Planning Commission are allotted a presentation time of 10 minutes. This time should include, but is not limited to, an overview of the project, case history, and any pertinent meetings held regarding the request. This time also includes all persons presenting information on behalf of the applicant, such as attorneys, engineers, and architects. The time limit does not include any questions asked by the Planning Commission or staff regarding the request. During the public comment period, members of the general public are given the opportunity to address their concerns in intervals of 2 minutes. After the public comment period, applicants will have up to 5 minutes to respond. The administrator will have a timer and will make presenters aware of when their time has expired. And the Planning Commission reserves the right to amend these procedures on a case-by-case basis. And having said that, we'll begin. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, there have been several changes to the agenda since publication. The first change is under future land use amendment and zoning amendment for a pending annexation, case number 2, which was NX-2024-0025 at 1401 Shop Road, has been withdrawn from the agenda. And on the regular agenda, under zoning map amendment, the ZMA-2025-0004, 5003 Rhett Street has been deferred. And as well, case number 9, which is a zoning text and map amendment, ZMA-2025-0006 at 427 Hardin Street has been deferred. Case number 10, under zoning text amendment, TA-2025-0002, a request to recommend amendments to the Unified Development Ordinance about use regulations has been withdrawn. And under major site plan review, case number 13, which is S-Plan-2025-0003 at 1735 Devonshire Drive, has been deferred. Aside from those, the agenda stands.
All right. We will do the consent agenda. The Planning Commission uses the consent agenda to approve non-controversial or routine matters by a single motion and vote. Examples of such items include the approval of site plans, annexations, and street names. If a member of the Planning Commission or the general public would like to discuss an item on the consent agenda, you must speak up after the consent agenda is read. Then that item is removed from the consent agenda and will be considered during the meeting. The Planning Commission then approves the remaining consent agenda items. Will staff please read the consent agenda?
Certainly. The first case first is to approve the February 13th, 2025 minutes. And then case number 3 is Annex-2025-0002, 702 Dixie Avenue, a portion, to request recommendation on the assignment of the land use classification of urban core residential small lot, UCR1, and the assignment of zoning of residential mixed district, RM1, for a pending annexation. The property is currently classified as mixed residential high density and zoned residential 4, R4 by Richland County. The next case is Annex-2025-0003, 201 Stone Ridge Drive, 0.23 of an acre on the north side of Stone Ridge Drive, 0.25 of an acre on the east side of Timothy Drive, 0.24 acre Jacob Road, and 0.24 acre on the east side of Timothy Drive, 365 Jacob Road. Request recommendation on the assignment of the land use classifications of Community Activity Corridor AC2 and Urban Edge Mixed Residential UEMR, and the assignment of zoning of Employment Campus District EC for a pending annexation. The property is currently classified as mixed residential high density and mixed use corridor and zoned institutional and residential R3 by Richland County. Next is a zoning map amendment, ZMA-2025-0002, 3150 Lucius Road. Request recommendation to rezone the property from residential single-family small lot district, RSF3, to residential mixed district, RM2. And finally, zoning text and map amendment, ZMA-2025-0003, 1500A Main Street. This is the Seth Thomas Clock in the public right-of-way adjacent to tax map number 090140916. Request recommendation to rezone the property from City Center Design Overlay District to City Center Design Overlay District Historic Preservation Overlay District as an individual Type 1 landmark, and amend the Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 17, Appendix A, Type 1 landmarks to establish the property as a City of Columbia landmark. And that concludes the consent agenda.
Thank you. Are there any planning commission members that would like to have an item removed from the consent agenda? Are there any members of the public that would like to speak to have an item removed? All right. Seeing none, we'll take a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the February 13, 2025 minutes and the items on the consent agenda.
Have a motion. Can I get a second? Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Move on to the regular agenda. We will use the following outline for the regular agenda items. The administrator will introduce the case, and the applicant will have 10 minutes to make a presentation. The Planning Commission may ask questions, and then we'll open for a public comment period to those present. Once the public comment period is closed, the applicant will have up to 5 minutes to respond to the public comments. And the Planning Commission may ask additional questions of the applicant, and then we'll have deliberation and action taken. We have the first item on the regular agenda.
Yes, so the first item on the regular agenda is item number 7, which is ZMA-2025-0005, and it is a 1222 and 1230 House Street, and other properties along Human Street, McDuffie Avenue, and this is a request for a recommendation to rezone the property from residential single-family small lot district, so RSF3, to residential mixed district, RM2. And you may note in the case summary that, so again, there are 5 parcels there, and staff's recommendation is split in terms of, we do recommend approval on the 3 western parcels, and we are recommending denial on the 2 eastern parcels, in part due to reference to existing plans in the area. And I'd be glad to answer any questions you have about that, but that's written up in the case summary.
Thank you. Do any commission members have questions of staff?
I mean, could you go a little further into, as you said, it's existing plans in the area?
Sure. So there is there's a plan called the Plan for Redevelopment of East Central City, which is a 2004 plan. So it is a little bit old, but it did in general recommend preserving single family for infill in this area, but it did suggest for some higher density and specifically on the northwest corner of this. And so that coupled with the context of the site with single-family residences to the east and, to the west, there's a church and some other properties that don't really face it. We felt comfortable with the approval on the western properties, but less so in terms of those existing plans for the eastern ones.
Any other commission members have any questions of staff?
This request is all or nothing, all 5 or none, right?
Well, the Planning Commission can certainly make whichever recommendations that they would choose. You can recommend to approve it, to deny it wholesale, or you could, like staff did, recommend different for each portion.
So the property at the corner of Human and McDuffie is, if were to be built, would be planned to have the house towards McDuffie Avenue and not Human? Because there are the multi-families across Human.
So,
That not?
right, this is not a review of a site
Okay.
plan per se. So I don't know specifically how any buildings would be oriented. The applicant might be able to talk about it, but again, we do ask the board, or sorry, the commission to look at the appropriateness of the zoning district.
Is the applicant here? Thanks. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Anthony A. Dix. I'm the CEO of the Friendship Development Corporation, also the pastor of the Friendship Church, which is just across the house street from these 5 lots. Let me please take a moment to tell you all how much I appreciate the service that you all render to our city for the purpose of proper land use. I've been in that area and pastor of the church for the last 43 years. The lots that you are now looking at, when I first got there, there were some very rundown homes there. And of course, as staff has recommended, and they've been very thorough, they've been very helpful, been very thoughtful, and I think that they have at heart the community. We've spoken with the community prior to making application. It's been our desire over the years to make a dent in the housing needs of Columbia, South Carolina. We have looked at the recommendations from staff, and we are in lockstep with them. We would not want anything to face the houses that are on McDuffie that would not be fitting in with the plan for the Planning Commission. We would like to try and turn the bulk of the project toward House Street facing the church. We may need to face one of them toward the Human Street property, which is already appears to be mixed and has been for some time with some duplexes there. And again, staff has been exceptional in reaching out, communicating, and I might just add before I shut up that it's important to us that we fit in with the plan of the community and the plans that you all have here. Staff, I think, is aware. I am a former building inspector and zoning officer for Richland County some 37 years ago. And again, I appreciate the time and the interest you put into our project. And if there are any questions, we'll be glad to try and answer them. We intend to be back and forth in contact with staff to be sure that whatever you all decide is complied with and that the community remains satisfied. We've gotten a very supportive letter from the community. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Do any commission members have any questions of the applicant?
I've got one question. It looks to me, just looking at the map, these are currently blank lots. There's no structures on them.
No structures on them, no, sir.
I didn't hear exactly what you plan to do. I know we're not looking at a site.
The recommendations of staff is that we wanted to do a couple of quadruplexes. They are recommending that we think more toward the duplex matter that might fit in a little bit more with what's happening across the street on Human Street. So it would be duplexes.
Okay, is it likely you would combine all the parcels into a single parcel?
That is our desire, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Did you, I had one question. So you said you were in lockstep. Are you in agreement with the?
With staff, yes, sir.
Okay.
I am. Yes. Other members of our group are sitting in the audience there. I just want you all to know that the church has invested some $2.6 million over the years into the neighborhood. And certainly we want to continue to be good neighbors until maybe one day we can find a piece of property further out and put housing where the church is now.
Mr. Diggs, just a quick question for you. You mentioned that there's already duplexes on that street. Are they on the McDuffie?
On the corner of Human and McDuffie, there are, I believe, 2 duplex units there that whomever purchased those have upgraded that site and has improved the appearance and the quality of the occupants in those units.
I got one more question, sorry. So you said you agreed with the city staff, so you're not asking us to change the ruling on the other 2 parcels, the 3 parcels are okay with you? You're not asking us to overrule staff on that?
We want to combine the 5 lots
Okay.
so that we've got the kind of space we need. Our agreement is that we don't need to cause any homeowner, or property owner across that McDuffie side to feel like I got to wake up every morning and look at a quadruplex or something that isn't fitting with their investment in the community. Can't build communities without working together and understanding that everybody has a part in what's there.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Diggs. Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak on behalf of this project or applicant? Or in opposition? Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
If I may, I would like to add something just to expand upon a previous comment of mine. But so, first of all, regardless of the Planning Commission's recommendation, it does continue to council. But the other thing is just in terms of the process. So, even though staff's recommendation, has 2 different outcomes, depending on which parcel we're talking about. Normally, if it went through the process and let's say council said, hey, look, we're not going to support this, and there was discussion about a different zoning district, so let's say RM1 versus RM2, they would have to return to the Planning Commission. But since, if it is possible for them to say, well, we'll approve the application, but only for a portion. So they would not necessarily need to come back through the Planning Commission. And I just want to make that procedural note.
Thank you. Are those lots are clearly addressed on House Street?
I'm sorry?
The western lots on House Street?
Correct.
And then, okay, and one on Human?
Right, so the 3 that face House Street, but right, one is on the corner of House and Human.
Is it 2502 or 2506? I'm sorry, just for clarification.
2502.
2502?
So 2502 Human, and then 1230 House and 1222 House.
So 2506 is on the east.
Correct.
Got it.
It's also articulated in your, the first paragraph of the staff recommendation, if that helps.
Okay. All right. There's no further public comments. Any comments left from commissioners?
Mr. Chair, I do have a follow-up question for staff.
Sure.
If we could go to the zoning page, I'm trying to understand why the properties right across Human Street, those, if I'm viewing at it correctly, those are already RM2, correct?
That is correct.
Why are those approved on the McDuffie side for RM2, but staff is recommending for these two plots on the McDuffie side to not be approved? What's the difference on that side?
It's hard for me to get into historical details without knowing the full thing, but it is a separate block, and so the development pattern on that block is different than this block. So I think it was a reflection of the conditions that were in place already. So that's why that block is RM2, and this block, when mapped, was mapped as single family. Yeah.
I would just comment to commissioners, if we were to approve the 3 on House Street, the applicant could always come back later. Is that correct for these other 2? If they have a plan that's developed later in time?
Certainly, they could, yes.
Okay. Or approve or deny it, the whole thing. Just, any other discussion? Take a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we recommend approval of the request to amend the zoning map for the properties at 1222 and 1230 House Street, 2502 and 2506 Human Street, and 1225 McDuffie Avenue, as it meets the decision standards outlined in section 17-2.5C in the Unified Development Ordinance.
We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
That's going to bring us to S-Plan 2025-0001 at 301 Club Ridge Road, TMS number 28900-01-20. And this is a request for major site plan approval to construct an 8 pickleball court, pavilion, and associated parking at the Wood Creek Club. Property is zoned planned development within the Wood Creek Farms planned development. And this application was originally scheduled for the February 13th meeting. However, based upon communication from the neighborhood, the applicant decided to defer the request and meet with the neighborhood. Since then, the applicant has met with the neighborhood and has agreed to some conditions that are outlined in your case summary. The applicant is, number one, to use arborvitae and some sort of fast-growing evergreen, then little gem magnolias. Condition number two, install a timer on the lights on the courts that will cut off no later than 10 p.m. And number three, to the utilization of new style of rackets and balls, which tend to be quieter than the original pickleball technology available for use in the pro shop. And in addition, the applicant has agreed to investigate the possibility of utilization of a soundproof curtain and/or panels. The applicant is present and can explain their case.
Thank you. Any commission members have any questions of staff? Is the applicant here? Thanks.
Chairman, members of the commission, I am Harold Pickerel. I am the owner of the Wood Creek Club. As Jonathan said, we met last Tuesday night, a week ago, with about 27 members of the neighborhood next door. For the most part, we had 24 or 5 fairly happy people and 2 or 3 that were not very happy. But as John said, we agreed to landscape buffering, wind screens, sound buffering screens, the new paddles and balls that are a little quieter. This project, Wood Creek has been an ongoing project now for 5.5 years. In our opinion, it's a very good-looking project. We will follow the sound ordinance at 10 o'clock, turn the lights off at 10 o'clock. It'll be automatic. 6-foot-tall brick wall running down the property line between our property and the neighbor's property. We trying to do everything we can out there to be as good a neighbor as we can be to everybody. It is a golf course and a club. So we have been underway. And one of the things we brought up that I think is important to note that I felt like went over pretty well at the meeting is it is a private golf course, private club, 250 members currently. We'll probably cut it off at 350. So this, I think it's important to note that this isn't 100 people out there playing pickleball all day and all night. We probably have maybe 20, 30 people that play pickleball in the club right now. You can't play there if you're not a member there. So, I don't think it's quite as big of an issue as if it was a commercial type facility where you may have a full group there playing on 8 courts all the time. We are proposing to build 8 courts to have a league play. League play normally starts around 6:30, and it's done by 8:30 or 9. And a lot of times that's a couple nights a week. So, that's what we're requesting. We think it fits what's out there, and it certainly is part of our ongoing improvement of Wood Creek, which some of you may or may not know was foreclosed on about 5.5 years ago. We bought it at foreclosure and been sort of bringing it back up ever since to get it back to where it needs to be. So that's my pitch. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
So just a question for staff. I assume then the next item is contingent on this one?
No, they're two totally separate applications.
Okay.
You might share the 2 unhappy neighbors, what their concerns were, not to get you to incriminate.
Well, as most of you know, I've been doing this a long time. It really had nothing, well, they had a comment about me building, it was the maintenance shed. It's actually the next item that they weren't happy about. So they proceeded to talk about, I didn't care about anything at Wood Creek and the goofy houses I let be built out there and so on and so forth. So it took a different turn. But that was only 2 people though. That was only 2, so.
Do you know how utilized the existing tennis courts at the property are? Are those used a lot?
The tennis courts get a good bit of play during the day, but not that much. I'd say a normal amount, not a lot. We can't. It's hard to. We don't fill all. I don't know that much about league tennis, but I know we don't have enough members to fill the teams. We fill maybe a 2-5 team and a 3-0 team, but they're not generally a problem. We've actually made a statement that we're going to change those out too. Right now, they've been there 20+ years, so you can go up and turn a timer on and it stays on for like 2 hours. So we're going to change those out because some people will want to play 15 more minutes and it's 9:30 and they turn it for 2 hours and they leave and then it stays on until 11:30. So we're going to change those out so the lights go off at 10 o'clock as well. All good?
Go ahead. Oh, I've got, as far as the soundproof curtains, can you talk a little about those or?
Windscreens, so you'll have the pickleball courts with windscreens, landscape landscape buffer, and then a brick wall. And while the brick wall may be 6 foot, the landscape that we're planning to plant will be fast-growing evergreen trees. So we believe between the windscreens, the lower noise paddles and balls, and then the landscape buffer and the wall, that's going to be a fairly significant buffering of any sound. Not to say it'll kill it all, but it'll certainly damper it.
Any other questions from commissioners?
Just for clarification, does that mean that the soundproof curtain panels are going to be installed?
Say that one time?
Does that mean that the soundproof curtains panels are going to be installed?
I don't know there's such a thing as a soundproof panel. Somebody brought that up at the meeting. There are sound dampening panels, like any kind of fabric. You can go to restaurants and see the sound buffering panels that they'll put. Hard surfaces are what makes sound bounce around. So, the more stuff we can put to absorb that. So to answer your question, we've not been able to find anything that's called a pure soundproof panel. It's outside, and it's only, the screens that go around the pickleball courts on the end are like 8 or 9 foot tall. So sound could still go over it, but the more you can buffer it, because, we're pickleball, you're down around waist high hitting the ball. So, that's the best way I know how to answer that. I don't know that it truly exists, a soundproof. That's just something somebody brought up at the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir.
Are there any members of the public that would like to comment in favor or opposition to this applicant? Any commission members have any questions, staff, or any?
Just a question for staff. So these additional measures were not required by the planning staff. It was taken, is that correct?
That's correct.
So it was
After
over
the-
and above, beyond what you guys asked for.
Yes, after the meeting, Mr. Pickrell emailed us what the summary of the meeting and what the conditions were that he agreed to. And so that's there in the case summary. We would just ask that if the commission granted approval, that they did it with the conditions as outlined in the case summary.
And now with the conditions as they're outlined on here with point number 4, they just have to investigate the use of the curtains panels, right? They don't actually have to install them.
That's correct. Mr. Pickrell, as he just stated, I think they were going to look into the possibility, and if they can find them, then they would install them. But if they can't, then they would not.
Okay.
They would just investigate the use of them.
All right. Any further discussion, comments? Well, take a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve S-Plan -2025-0001, 301 Club Ridge Road, along with any staff comments if there are.
I'd like to amend that to include the comments in the case summary.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion passes. We will go on to number 12.
So that's going to take us to S-Plan -2025-0002, 300A Club Ridge Road. This project entails the expansion of an existing maintenance shed and the construction of a maintenance shed on the Wood Creek Club. The existing maintenance shed is currently approximately 6,300 square feet and will be expanded by 560 square feet. The proposed shed will contain 1,200 square feet and will be located adjacent to the pool. The site plan requires that the Planning Commission approve it due to the location of the property being located within the Wood Creek plan development. And as Mr. Harold Pickrell stated in the previous case summary, this was also discussed during the meeting. There was some conditions that were agreed upon by the developer, and that is to add a row of landscaping to the original maintenance shed, which was actually already planned, but they were waiting for better weather. They would also agree to pave the parking lot, which is also on the plan schedule, and then also look into a spotlight that is actually shining towards the homeowner's home, as was skipped when the installation of the motion sensors was added. And if the Planning Commission was so kind to grant this approval, we just ask that the conditions outlined in the case summary, as well as conditions 1 through 3, as stated previously, be part of the approval.
Thank you. Any questions for staff before we talk to the applicant? Mr. Pickrell, would you like to? Okay.
So the addition that you can see on your drawing there is a pure sort of storage building. And it's in an effort to clean up the maintenance area, hide some of the equipment, or, we have a lot of chemicals and fertilizers and that kind of thing. So when we bought the club, the maintenance shed actually was not even on Wood Creek Club property. So we had to replace it. We had to move it to our property. And we did, and we put it here by the pool. The additional trees that Jonathan mentioned have already been dug. They were dug earlier this week. They'll start being planted next week. The parking lot itself would have already been paved, but in the grading and stoning of the parking lot to get it prepared for paving, a septic field was discovered from 50 years ago that we had to go in and replace and clean up, which we've now done. And I would imagine in the next 30 days, we'll get the parking lot paved, and that'll cut down on more noise. We have installed timers on the lights where they go off pretty early. And, and I think with the new row of trees, that'll start to, and they're 10-foot tall, 10-foot tall trees. And they're all evergreen, and that hopefully, arborvitae's grow faster than magnolias, but, we'll make it as pretty as we can. There is a brick wall between us and the neighborhood, but there is already one row of trees there as well. We'll double that up to sort of fill in the spacing, and as they grow, it'll eventually shield the maintenance shed from the neighbors next door. The new shed that we're proposing in this, it's behind the pool facing the driving range. It's not very visible from anybody else other than if you're on the golf course or up there hitting balls. The other shed's already there. So I think we can do everything that was asked of us, and I think that'll remedy any problems.
Thank you. Any commission members have any questions for the applicant? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, are there any members of the public that would like to speak in favor or opposition to this applicant? All right, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve S-Plan 2025-003. I'm sorry, reading the wrong one. S-Plan -2025-0002, 300A Club Bridge Road, with the staff comments and the conditions outlined in the case summary.
Thank you. We've got a motion.
Second.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. We will move on to the next regular agenda item.
All right, that's going to take us to S-Plan 2025-0004 within the 2000 block of Marion Street, the 1400 block of Elmwood Avenue, and the 2000 block of Bull Street with various TMS numbers. This project entails the construction of an 8-story commercial and residential mixed-use building on 2.41 acres on the south side of Elmwood Avenue between Marion Street and Bull Street. The proposed development will contain 288 units, an amenity space, and a parking garage. The applicant is also proposing 19,000 square feet of commercial space for retail and office use. The required number of off-street parkings for this development is 0, whereas the applicant will be providing 376 in the parking garage, as well as there will be 9 on-street parking spaces along Marion Street. The applicant has provided a traffic impact study, which has been reviewed and approved by the city's traffic engineer. And if the commission is inclined to grant this request, staff would just ask that it be granted with staff comments as outlined in the case summary. and the applicant is present and can further describe their case.
All right, thank you. Would the applicant like to come up and talk about the project?
All right. Hi, everybody. I just want to thank the City of Columbia and the Planning Commission for having us here today. My name is John Wofford. I'm a partner at Astral Development. My family has been in Columbia now for 4 generations, so this property and this location is very important to me. I graduated Auburn University in architecture, and when I moved back to Columbia to work at Stevens & Wilkinson, I was really dismayed at the lack of housing options and rental options there are for young adults and young professionals. And, after that, I sort of made it my mission to try to, get better at housing and multifamily housing. I've had the good fortune of working in California and New York now on multifamily apartment buildings and mixed-use projects. And I've since transitioned from architecture now to real estate development. But I ultimately always wanted to make a positive, beneficial difference in my hometown. And I truly believe that this corner right here is the catalyst for connecting the Bull Street District to Main Street and really improving the overall walkability of downtown. We've reached out to the local presidents of the historic groups, including Robert Mills, Elmwood, Cottontown, and others, to make sure that they were aware of what we're proposing here and that our architectural design is in keeping with the historic nature of the area. It's all been fairly well received thus far. So that's why we're here today, just to discuss the site plan. I'm also here with Ryan Trimble from Axiom Architecture, who is responsible for the drawings and the beautiful renderings over here. So maybe, do you want to walk us through the project a little bit? Yeah.
Hi, as John mentioned, I'm Ryan Trimble with Axiom Architecture. I am an architect with Axiom Architecture. I'm the project manager for this building. I'm going to walk you through the design real quick and happy to answer any questions afterwards. As staff mentioned, it is an 8-story structure. It's 85 feet from ground to the roof. The parapets are slightly taller in order to hide the HVAC equipment that will be up there. We've done a lot, I think, to try to break down the massing of such a large building. It does span the full block along Elmwood from Bull Street to Marion. So we've, as you can see in the renderings and the plans, we do step the building back in 2 sections along Elmwood. Again, trying to break down that massing a bit. And also leaving the building does stay out at the ground floor, making the retail a little more prominent, hopefully a little more viable. So we've got, as staff mentioned, about 19,000 square feet of retail on the ground floor, facing mostly Elmwood. It does wrap around to the Bull Street side some. We have the main resident entry and leasing office on Marion, kind of trying to face that on the slower paced, more residential street on that side. All of that wraps around and conceals the parking garage that's in the back of the building. The parking garage goes from level 1 to 3. The residential apartments start on level 4 and go all the way up to the top at level 8. Level 4 has a couple of large courtyards that you can see in the renderings in the package you guys have. One of those has the swimming pool and the club amenities on it. It is open to the rear of the building. Again, kind of breaking down such a large building on that side. We do like I said, the apartments continue up to level 8. The only other thing I'll mention inside is we do have a lounge and terrace on the southwest corner on the top floor facing downtown, trying to take advantage of those views in that direction. I'll run through the parking real quick. I think staff mentioned there are 376 spaces in the garage. This site does not require any parking, but we are providing about 57 spaces for visitors, both for the retail and people that might visit the tenants on the ground floor. That'll be open for people to park in to visit the retail during the day. And then the balance of the parking is on level 2 and 3, and that would be secure parking for the residents themselves. Those 57 spaces come out to right about 3 per 1,000, which was our target for the retail. We will have space for EV cars within the garage. We have a lot of bike parking as well. That's one of the amenities that you can see on the Marion side, along with a fitness center. We've got both short and long-term storage for bikes inside and outside the building. Trying to make that a priority. John and his team have indicated that connectivity to the neighborhood through biking is a big one for them. So trying to focus on that. We are adding 9 spaces on street on Marion. Those are going to be angled parking spaces that were actually proposed as part of the recent upgrades to the Bull and Elmwood intersection. That was part of that project scope of work, but didn't actually get done. So we're proposing to go ahead and stripe those spaces to kind of complete that project. The only change is that you can see right at the entrance, the main entrance to the garage is on Marion there. We are proposing to bump out the curb line to kind of make that situation a little bit more safe for both the cars parked in those on-street spaces as well as the ones entering and exiting the garage. There is a second entrance to the garage on the Bull Street side. That does connect through, so anybody can go that way as well, but it's primarily intended to be the service entrance on that side. We do have a large service court that's intended to house trucks for trash pickup, move-ins, loading for retail, all that sort of stuff. The streetscape on Elmwood does include a loading zone that's intended for larger trucks that may not be able to fit inside the garage or inside that service space. We are working with SCDOT on that, since that is their right-of-way over there. I think real quick, just around the rest of the building on the site, we are, along with the biking, we're trying to make this site a lot more friendly and pedestrian friendly than it is currently. So wide sidewalks, shade trees all the way around, including kind of an additional line of trees and landscape buffering as you get closer to the Bull Street and Elmwood intersection, with the intent of really trying to soften that experience. Again, make it somewhere that feels safer and more inviting to be in for the retail and potential outdoor dining that might happen in that area. The back of the building has some additional outdoor amenity spaces, including a dog run and stuff along that back side, as well as utilities. We're trying to hide the transformers and generator and things like that back there. One thing I would mention is that we are working with the city and Dominion to try to bury the power lines that are on this site currently. So it's likely that those power lines may run along that back side of the building as well. We're still working with Dominion to kind of finalize that plan, but that is a key goal of this project, to make those power lines go away. I think I'll stop there, kind of a brief summary. I will say that we do have the Kimley Horn team here. They're the civil engineer on this project. If you guys have questions for them, we have them here to answer those questions. They also prepared the traffic study in case you guys have any questions with that. But otherwise, like I said, thank you for your time. We're excited about this project. We're hoping to keep moving forward here. Thank you.
Thank you. Any commission members have any questions of the applicant?
I do. Pedestrian access to the Bull Street district, are there improvements being made as part of this project or another project? Because that seems like that's going to be a great connectivity at some point in time, and that's an extremely busy intersection. So just any comments about pedestrian
Building that you might speak to this site.
Yeah, we've, we're trying to make it.
Do you mind, yeah, thank you.
Sorry. We're trying to make it as pedestrian friendly as possible, and we do realize it's a pretty wide street you have to cross there. We're looking to implement strategies like bollards on our site to make it safer for people who are standing on the corner. But, as y'all are probably aware, that intersection was recently renovated with the penny tax money. So we do want to make sure it's safe for pedestrians. It's definitely safer than it was when we initially purchased the site before the intersection was redone. But yeah, we're in talks on always trying to think of ways that we can make sure people can enjoy both sides of Bull Street safely.
Yeah, and I'll just add briefly to that too. I didn't mention, you can kind of see it on this plan on the board over here. There are 2 pedestrian breezeway connections from the garage out to the street, one right in the middle there on Elmwood, and then another one towards the corner. Again, trying to make it easy for people to flow in and out of this building to both the retail on our site, but everything else in the neighborhood as well.
Is the garage, is it going to be like controlled access or secured, not public on the?
Yeah,
Okay.
we're in discussions right now to iron out the logistics, but the goal right now would be to have secure gates on the outsides of both garage entries that are closed after retail hours, so residents would still be able to get in, but it would help keep, strangers out of the building after hours. And then we would also have an additional security gate when you go up the ramp to the residential only. So there would be sort of 2 series of security after hours.
I had one other question. The exterior retail areas that are recessed along Elmwood, are those raised, or are those going to be flush with the sidewalk?
They'll be at grade.
They'll be a grade?
They'll be at grade, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, there are a couple of slab steps as you make your way down to follow the grade, but everything will have doors that open to the sidewalk all the way along.
You mentioned you were going to have a loading area. Would that be able to be accessed by residents for move-in time?
Yes, yeah, that's the intent. There's actually an elevator right behind that service area, so they could pull a truck in and get right to that elevator and go up.
And are you planning on that for like retail, like say, like for outdoor dining, the retail spaces can use that too if they get deliveries?
Yeah, our intent is that's kind of a catch-all service zone, so there will definitely be some coordination of move-in times, but typically the retail stuff happens kind of earlier in the morning, trash as well, whereas residents would be during the day, but everybody would be sharing that same space.
And we've spoken with Waste Management as well, and they've approved, given us a soft approval for the layout and said it's okay for their trash trucks and everything, so.
I may have missed this. Is this rental or condo? Rental?
Yes, this would be rental. Great.
Is the intent for this to also serve as off-campus student housing?
No, this, like I said, sort of towards the beginning, our goal is really to try to create housing for everybody, especially for graduates, and try to keep young people here in Columbia. We're not targeting students with this development, no.
Thank you.
Any other comments of the applicant? Thank you.
All right, thank you for your time.
Are there any members of the public that would like to speak regarding the application? Let's go.
Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the commission. I'm Matt Kennel with the Main Street District, and I just want to comment that John and his team at Astral have been extremely free with information from this project from the very beginning. And I've worked with a lot of developers over the last 20-something years downtown, but I don't think I've seen another one that paid as much attention to connectivity and to the details of this project as they have. They've talked a lot about using Calhoun Street as being a connection to the Main Street District, and also connections to Bull Street. And we really see this project as being much needed density that will connect those two districts and really help build our downtown. So I just wanted to support it and really thank them for all their work. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Members of the Planning Commission, I'm Jim Daniel. I have two questions for the applicant. One is, how many bedrooms or what is the maximum occupancy of this apartment complex?
It's
You got two bedrooms, three bedrooms?
I think it's in the 288 units.
That's the units. How many bodies will
230.
be living in the units? Where I'm going with that is the issue we're seeing with these large student complexes, they are meeting the code requirements for parking. The problem is at least 4 of them have had to either rent space in city garages, adjacent hotels, or somewhere to park their occupants. In this particular situation, where is the overflow parking if more parking is needed for these units? You can't park on Bull Street. There's limited parking on Elmwood. There is some on Marion. There's not much on Calhoun. Are they going to go into the Cottontown neighborhood? Are they going to go into the Bull Street neighborhood? What's the backup plan? The 9 complex on UG had 100 more cars show up than was expected. They had to rent space in the adjacent hotel. The one on UG, on Gervais Street, had to go into the Vista parking garage. The consultants all say that what we like about these downtown complexes are people are going to walk to destinations. But what we're seeing in effect is each got a car. So that's one concern I got is where are they going to park in the overflow for this complex? Thank you.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to speak to that? If you wouldn't mind coming up.
Yeah, thank you for your question. I appreciate your concern. The largest unit type that we have in the project is 3-bed. We're really targeting, young professionals. So we're skewing our unit mix more towards studios and 1-bedrooms. We do not want to have anything like a 4 or 5 or 6 bedroom like you're seeing in dormitories. That's completely, out of the picture. And to your question about parking, we're currently providing 1.1 parking spots per unit. So each resident will have a dedicated parking spot. At night, when more people come home from work and retail winds down, the parking space on the first floor that you saw earlier can function effectively as an overflow. So those are more, that's beyond the dedicated parking. So when shoppers have left and people come home from work, or if they have guests, those folks can park on the first floor. It's an additional 57 spots. So, we feel our project should be able to handle the appropriate amount of parking.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from the public? People like to speak on the applicant? Before we take a motion, just so everyone's clear, is for the site plan specifically. And I would like to commend the applicant on, there's clearly a lot of thought and work with staff that's reflected in here. So it's good to see one come in that has that kind of intentionality to it. I guess we'll take a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the request for site plan 2025-004, 2022, 2034, and 2042 Marion Street, 1408, 1410, 1416, 1418, and 1420 Elmwood Avenue, 2019, 2021, and 2031 Bull Street, conditional upon all staff comments being addressed and that it will meet all site plan decision standards.
What does that mean? Thank you. All right, we have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. All right. It looks like we have no other business unless.
The only thing I just wanted to mention is, many of you are aware, we're going through our downtown strategic planning process and rewriting design guidelines for downtown. We had a set of public open houses yesterday, and that will be coming to the Planning Commission in the near future to make a recommendation to council. So next month, we do plan on having a work session before your meeting at 3 so that we can just help y'all get more familiar with that document and the guidelines so that you're more comfortable with it by the time it comes to you, which we anticipate in May. So we will send a meeting invite, but I just wanted to give you a heads up. You should have all received MailChimps and information about those meetings and those documents. They're all posted on our website, et cetera. But please feel free to call us if you have any questions between now and then. But just plan for that next month, please. That's all I had.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay.
All right, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Chair, I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
All right, a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion adjourned.